Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. This is a conservative-leaning podcast, but I do take in views from both sides. I am a conservative. I'm a Republican, not MAGA. I'm a federalist. I take in the Constitution. Democrats can be a federalist. So it works both ways. I want to thank everyone who is watching, everyone who has subscribed. I appreciate it. If you like the program, leave comments. If you don't like the program, even more of a reason to leave a comment. But you should all subscribe. Because how else will you know if I'm saying wonderful things or I'm just spewing rhetoric? That's for Bob in New York. All right, everyone, this is April 20th. Big happy birthday to David. Happy birthday to Laura. And happy birthday to anyone else out there that happens to have a birthday on the 20th. Today will be episode 55 of my program. You could search my playlists. I have approximately 400 videos out there. I apologize. The allergy that never goes away. So, ever since COVID, I've had a runny nose. All right, in today's podcast, I'm going to talk about, again, in the last couple of ones, Tim Walz. Seems that Democrats are giving him a lot of traction. I'm going to be talking about, I apologize again, I'm going to be talking about Cuba, an LA Times article. I'm going to talk about a 60 Minutes article about, them saying that Trump is not telling the truth about Iran, and it really is a very slanted article. And again, 60 Minutes, not to start at that point, but 60 Minutes is really terrible. Terrible. They have absolutely no credibility anywhere. And then I'll be talking about the Iranian ongoing negotiations and basically what I believe is the ultimate strategy of the president. All right, let's continue. Walz wants to start a small town PAC, and the PAC is a political action committee for small towns in Minnesota. Why the Democrats would even allow Tim Walz at this particular junction in time to talk about heading up a PAC, collecting money, collecting donations, and this guy could very likely end up in jail for fraud and aiding and abetting fraud, not stopping it when he could have and should have. And what Walz is trying to do is saying that the small towns don't have enough of a political say in, in state government, in federal government. Most PACs are for federal, but they don't necessarily have to be. So Tim Walz is saying they need money to make the voices of these small towns heard. Well, Tim, you were the governor. And you said you had the hearts and minds of all these people in small towns. What you've said. Why do you need a political action committee? Why not just do what you were doing? Problem could be that any government funding that was coming in, you were giving away to fraudulent daycares and food programs, Tim. Right? Because that's what your state's accused of. Not only accused of, but they have charged and convicted people of doing just that in your state. So now you're saying we need more money. We need to have these small towns step up to the plate that you took money away from, Tim. Honestly, Democrats, you're out of your freaking minds. Just last week, Tim Walz was in Spain in support of Iran, in support of the terrorist regime there, telling the world that Iran was not a threat, didn't pose a threat. Yeah. You didn't think Iran posed a threat. Tim, you didn't think people were stealing from the state because you were so generous and kind that you didn't think anyone would ever do anything like that. How the Democrats can get behind this guy and give him the juice that he's getting, I don't get it. And again, Democrats, you failed in 2024 because you kept leaning left. And the people said, no, not going to happen. We're tired of that. It's not working. So your answer to that now in 2026 during a midterm is let's lean even more left. The support of a socialist and radical for a New York City mayor. The choices of a mayor that has been absolutely horrendous for Chicago 2 times. You have Democrats running around like Raskin, Representative Raskin, who wants to undo the 25th Amendment so that they can, meaning that the progressives can decide whether or not a president is fit or not and push him out. Never thought of doing that when Joe Biden was walking off stages, was saying crazy things, and not political crazy things, just crazy things. I mean, Trump will say some outlandish things, but Biden was just out of the blue. And then, of course, he'd shut the White House down at 11:30 in the morning. So because he was done for the day, 8 in the morning till 11:30 in the morning, then shut down. And that was perfectly fine for the Democrats, no question. Joe Biden is at the top of his game. Can you remember all that? Joe Biden is going to do a second term. We support him. We're behind him. Harris out in California, the day before Biden pulled out, and he didn't pull out, he was forced out of the campaign, secured hundreds of millions of dollars with the assurances that Joe Biden was going to stay in the race after his disastrous debate with Donald Trump. The debate ended up so bad for the Democrats that they wouldn't even think of having one against him with Harris. And just said, we're just going to roll the dice. We're hoping enough people hate Trump that pushes our guy over there, or gal, over the top. And they knew it wouldn't. But now, going back to Walz, who would trust this guy with money? Who would trust this guy with leadership? Oh, the Democrats would. Now, I am sure and certain that if the Democrats were in power and Jeffrey Epstein was still alive, they would allow him to open an all-girls school. With the common sense that's going on, that would just make sense. I don't get it, Democrats. I don't get your agenda. I don't get anything that you're doing out there because it just doesn't make sense. Instead of supporting the president, and you could, like I say, cautiously support the president, if you guys could sit down and go, okay, we know there's an immigration policy, a problem with our policies and stuff, we need to fix it. Or we just need to enforce it, one of the two. If you're not going to fix it, then you have to enforce it. And it should be being enforced anyway, and that's what exactly Trump is doing. And promised to do, and is doing it. And the truth of the matter is, it's the Democrats that are stopping that from happening, which was the will of the American voters to please do something about immigration. So I don't understand this whole Democratic mindset. And when I say Democratic, I'm not talking about my neighbors who might be Democrats. Though they might believe in it, but they have very little say in it except through money. And if I was a Democrat, I wouldn't give a penny to the DNC. So, Tim Walz wants to start a political action committee for small towns in Minnesota, and then wants to probably make this nationwide. How anyone would trust this guy, why anyone would trust this guy, is beyond me. This guy should just be quietly pushed off to the side somewhere and out of sight, out of mind. I mean, have we heard anything from Joe Biden lately? Remember how great he was, how wonderful, and not a word. Not a word. And because they know that Joe Biden is incapable. He's incapacitated. The poor guy has dementia. Now, not his fault. You can't blame Joe Biden, but you can blame the people that were around him. And those are these same Democrats that are still there today. Pelosi, Waters, Green, Schumer, Schiff. That are around and are political heavyweights. And they knew Joe Biden was bad. They knew Joe Biden was ill, and yet they support. And they go, well, privately we had gone to him, and you could have stopped it, and you didn't, because you were afraid of the fallout. The Democrats are afraid when they're exposed as failures. And instead of just coming out and saying, hey, we love Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe Biden, for your one term. You set the foundation now that we can go. We can do this. And now we have someone else that's gonna, you carried that load as far as you can carry it, Joe. Thank you. But they didn't do that. The Democrats tried to pull a fast one. And the same people that screamed about democracy, which understand we don't have a democracy, were the first ones to violate the main core of a democratic republic, was voting. They allowed Joe to do the primaries, win it, and then took it away and said, now we're anointing that person over there. And your vote meant nothing. And none of the media wanted to go down that road and go, well, Joe, he's sick, he can't do it. What can we do at this late date? And, actually the Democratic National Committee, during their convention, they're allowed to vote for someone. They can put someone in there. They could have done that anyway. Even though Joe won, they could have replaced him. But this way we had Joe, kind of leave on his own. Oh, they bum rushed him right out the door. And what ended up happening is they gambled the House of Representatives. And they lost. They knew they were going to lose the White House. And this is why the Democrats the people that are still there and running the show just can't be trusted. Awful, awful, awful decision making on that part. Okay, 15 minutes talking about the Democrats and Walz, and what are you guys thinking? Honestly, what are you guys thinking? Because it makes no sense. All right, the next topic. LA Times did an article on Cuba and Cuba's collapse. And it went from such a promising turn of events, because when when Obama went there, remember, Obama went to Cuba, and they said it was hopeful. He was going to open it up to tourism. He was going to do, some meaningful things to help Cuba. But did the Democrats ever lift the embargo that was created by the Democrats? And then now the article goes on to say that the embargo is being done to hurt the people of Cuba. Yeah, of course it's being done to hurt the people of Cuba. That's exactly what it was done for. See, they don't use the word a siege anymore. They use the word embargo. And that's when you don't let anything into the country that they really need. Now, in the past, they always had Russia. Well, Russia went bye-bye. China couldn't really go in there. They could have, but they elected not to. And I'm sure they would have, and I'm still surprising they haven't. But, China is a different mindset than Russia was, and a different mindset. They're, with Cuba or with any nation, you don't have to physically take it over. You just have to be able to control the government. That's all you need to do. You don't need to have people there other than, liaisons and stuff. But if you control the government, you effectively control the country. So in Cuba, they talk about Obama's historic opening to Trump's crippling embargo. Trump didn't create the embargo. That embargo's been there since JFK's time. And Johnson and Carter. Nixon. Ford. They were all part of it. This isn't Trump's embargo. And when you have a news organization like the LA Times calling it Trump's crippling embargo, you have to wonder about the validity of the whole article. And in Trump's first administration, he said he was very willing to lift the embargo. If there was a change in the political direction of the government and a reconciliation of the properties that were seized by Fidel Castro and his Cuban government, of properties owned by international people, United States, France, England, that lost control of their properties. They're just itching to go in there and rebuild them all, but we're not going to rebuild them unless they come back to us and we have some understanding and we can go forward on that. We'll rebuild the buildings, we'll rebuild the streets, we'll rebuild your infrastructure, but you ain't taking it away again. You're not doing that. And they don't talk about that. They don't talk in the article of how this regime was puppet agency, and we have puppet governments. It's what happens when you're top dog. Cuba lifeline was Russia. From oil to food to military might, it was Russia and its satellite nations. When that went away, they had nothing. I mean, their biggest industry, of course, was sugarcane. I wouldn't even say, I call the fetish industry was, Cuban cigars. And back in the day, gambling and debauchery. Beautiful country. Very nice people. But socialism and communism fails. Always does. And then they have to face the reality of, what are we going to do? Well, you're going to have to come back into the fold. Because you're the ones asking us for help. Because you got nothing. And you got nothing because you had a failed system in place. One that could never work. Just you can't do it. And Cuba, in the last 20 years, has become a beggar nation. They had to go to Venezuela to get oil. And that was the only thing keeping them going. The infrastructure, everything else collapsed. There was no way for them to have that fixed. Because oil came out of the ground there at costing Venezuela $3 a barrel, if that, to produce it and move it over to Cuba to use in a limited amount. Not a lot, but a limited amount. Enough to keep their cars going, enough to keep their military going, and enough to keep the lights on. That went away. Now they got nothing. They're sitting in the dark most of the time. They're in worse shape than North Korea. Worse case than a lot of these other countries because they're getting a lot of foreign aid, these other countries. And Cuba is not. So this was not Trump's embargo. You could say that Trump is continuing the embargo, but it's not Trump's embargo. He did not create the embargo. So the article is misleading. In the LA Times, can you believe it? A misleading article from LA Times? And like any beggar who begs on a street corner, when it's no longer producing any money from but he goes to the next street corner and then the next street corner. And that's what Cuba is ran out of people to beg to. And I'm sure there's a lot of Cuban Americans that would go back to Cuba and help them. And that might scare Cuba, the government that's there, that, once they come in and the people start eating, they go, well, it wasn't the government that was feeding me. It was, my people from America. So you guys got to go. Well, I'll put these people in charge because I know I'm going to eat. But I have a roof over my head and I'm going to have electricity. I got money coming in on tourism. And the only thing that I would say that Cuba really should be worried about if they were to open everything back up. Cuba was huge with gambling, huge with a jump-off point for illegal drugs. They really have to watch that. It might be a gem for a tourist spot. But there are pitfalls that they have to look at and go, we don't want to go back down that road again. So, but the idea that this is Trump's embargo on Cuba and all Cuba's problems are on Trump, it's not even good journalism. It's not even revisionist journalism. It's just outright lying. And I think that LA Times should be called out on it. It's just wrong. All right. 30 minutes into the show. An expert tells 60 Minutes Trump's Iran nuclear claim just not true. So, in this 60 Minutes interview, Dr. Matthew Bunn, B-U-N-N, a former White House nuclear advisor, now, of course, he's at Harvard, said that Trump's claim that Iran program has been obliterated, yeah, that statement is just not true. And Bunn said in a 60-Minute correspondent, Vega, on Sunday, you can't say that a program that still has enough nuclear material for a bunch of bombs is obliterated. Now, in that statement, in that context, you could also say that terrorism will never stop because you can't kill all the terrorists in Iran. So terrorism has not been defeated because Iran will always have terrorist cells in it. And 60 Minutes when 60 Minutes goes out to look for a story, and they shop around for a story, and they'll find someone who they'll go, well, we want the story to be shaped like this, so this is the person that will shape the story the way we would want it to be shaped. Is Dr. Bunn lying? No. He is not lying. If the nuclear material was taken away, and if that and everything else, but Bunn goes further to say is that you can't say it's obliterated because knowledge can't be obliterated. And in that sense, that's true. Since the 1940s, scientists knew how to build a nuclear bomb. Countries knew what nuclear fission, how it worked, and how they could make it work. What they couldn't do was produce the fissionable material. You know, they could, but they just didn't have the economy. They just didn't have not even the willpower. They couldn't do it. It was impossible for them to do. So the only way they could build a bomb is if they got the material. You could build a bomb. A probably 2-year physics students could figure out how to make a nuclear bomb. Because the knowledge is out there in all the books. It's there. It's knowledge. But you don't have the material to do it. So all you're left with is this nice little shiny piece of machinery that, you know, won't do anything. Becomes an end table. Now, if you have the material and you have the knowledge, then you become dangerous in the wrong hands. And that is what Dr. Bunn is trying to allude to when you say obliterated. Trump never said, when he said obliterated, that this would stop the knowledge of how to build a bomb. He just said that the program in making the materials for it, and now Trump has said even further that we will take that material from them either in a deal or by force. But at the end of that equation, Iran will get zero. Now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I believe the deal is that we will buy their, and Europe will buy their nuclear material, but every gram has to be accounted for. And the only way they could do that is through supervision. And Iran cannot be trusted. Iran should never be trusted. 47 years of not keeping one of their deals. The regime that is there today cannot be trusted. And you can obliterate the regime which stops them making nuclear material. You're not going to stop anyone from getting the knowledge. The knowledge of how to make a bomb and the knowledge of how to take those raw materials that they have there and convert it over. So, is Dr. Bunn lying when he says just not true? No, that's not true. And he's getting hung up on words. And 60 Minutes knows this. And yet they're going out there to say, see, it didn't do anything. Attacking Iran didn't do anything. Because they could still do it. They have the knowledge. Well, so does France. So does Britain. So does South Africa. So does Israel. So does Japan, China, India, Pakistan. We know that. Everyone knows it. And we attacked the regime. We attacked their ability to continue making enriched plutonium. We never said that we destroyed what they have, because that would be a very terrible thing to do. Is because if that gets out, that's problems for a lot of people. We want to take it away from them. And when Trump says obliterate their program, it's dismantling their program. And 60 Minutes is not truthful. And 60 Minutes is purposely not truthful. And 60 Minutes has never been truthful. A bunch of misinformation, misleading information, and not telling the full story. So, and that's my opinion. 60 Minutes, so if you try to come sue me for saying that, I'm allowed to have my opinion. And my opinion could be right, and my opinion could be wrong. But I would say that you can't make a bomb if you don't have the fuel. You could only make a piece of metal. And that's obliterating the program. If you cannot make the end product, you have obliterated the program. There you go. So, Bunn saying that in 60 Minutes, and a bunch of progressives who said we should never have even stopped them from it, then crying, well, you didn't stop them. Let us finish the job. If you want it to stop, we'll stop it. You gonna let us do it? No, you won't. So shut the F up. All right. Sucky 60 Minutes. You get more information out of South Park than you do 60 Minutes. Or The Simpsons. All right. The Iranian ceasefire and negotiations, of course, that is a ongoing minute-by-minute situation. The problem as I see it in Iran and then in Lebanon and the Houthis and in other spots where Iran actually controlled it, they controlled their proxies, is that those control mechanisms are now gone. So who is running those proxies with all these weapons and all this money that they still have? And that's a problem. So you're going to have instances where these groups are just going to act on their own. We're going to freewheel it. You know, what happens, happens. And there's no one in Iran to go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Because there's no relationship. Those people that were in those relationships are gone. The same thing in Lebanon. You know, you kill 25 of their top people, and then hundreds of the top people back in Iran that were controlling it. Now you got these groups out there going. And a lot of these groups were doing it, and people doing it because they were being fed and housed. And once that's gone, they go, well, guess it's back to driving a cab. And but in the meantime, you're going to have some diehards in those groups, and you're going to have problems. It doesn't mean that the ceasefire has failed. It's just that there's still kinks in it that have yet to be worked out. The Iranian Revolution Corps is a problem still. There are still people in charge there. Now, whether or not those people that are in charge there somehow were contacted by Mossad, the CIA, with the idea that going to need leadership here. The Revolutionary Guards, you know, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, will probably need to stay somewhat intact. But that's as long as you're willing to sit down with us and we'll dictate a deal to you. And in that deal, part of that process is that we're not going to kill you. Are you willing to sit down and discuss this? Because if not, within a day, 2 or 3, we'll find you. Or do you want to sit down here and really look at what's going on here and know that not many options here for you left? So, and you really can't do anything unless you're alive. What are you going to do? That is what wise people would do. Now, I think Trump has been willing to appease people that go, we'll do this diplomatically. Let's try this diplomatically first. And Trump knows 47 years of history with Iran. You know, what they say about leopards and spots and, you know. So Trump is probably sitting back going, hey, guys, you want to go negotiate with them, see what you can do? Maybe. We get people in there that we go, hey, I think this can work. You know, in the long run, this can work. But I think Trump is sitting back going, I gave you 10 days, then I gave you 2 weeks. And then I did this and I did that. And yet you're still attacking. And you're still thinking that you could sneak around us. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to blow the hell out of you. And you don't think so? You go tell that guy he's a goner, and tell the other guy he's not going to be a goner. Not yet. And then get rid of those 2 other guys. And then we'll sit down and we'll meet him again. And we'd like to start talking again. Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to go down this road with us? And if no, you go too. And I think that is what Trump is, the ultimate plan is, well, I know you're going to lie. I know you're not going to keep to the agreement. And when I expose that, and when I show that this is what you did, or you attack, or you did this, I wanted to give you mercy. My administration wanted to give you mercy. My administration wanted me to hold back. But you became a threat. When you said you weren't going to be a threat, well, now you're a threat no more. And the next people that sit there might now understand that. I think that, you know, could we have the people there topple their own government? No. I mean, it's a country of 90 million people. And most of those 90 million people are unarmed. So, what are you going to do? Right? So, all right, this has been going on now for almost 49 minutes. I appreciate if you made it this far. I'm going to put this out real quick. So this should be out today because today is Monday. And Monday is what? Socrates Station night in South Carolina for me. In Socrates, South Carolina. At the Socrates Station Bar and Grill. So that's on Route 707 between Murrells Inlet and Myrtle Beach on the 707. Great food, great people, lots of fun. It's a local bar. We don't talk politics there. Talk a lot of sports, which I'm not really a big sports person, but I nod my head and I go, oh yeah, I saw that. My wife is big with sports. Me, not so much. The bars, great food, great prices, great people. Parking's pretty easy. My only thing is if I've had more than 2 drinks, I'm Ubering it home. And I'm there for about 4 hours. So 2 drinks, I can handle. And if I don't think I can handle it, and there have been times where for whatever reason, they poured heavy or whatever, can't drive. Hello, Uber, $15 and I'm home. All right, everyone, please think about giving to a charity. Just make sure the charity is a real charity. Don't become a victim trying to help a victim. You go to the charity should never have to reach out to you. Because unless you're part of that charity, how did they get your name? They found it somewhere. Not a good way to go. A food bank always needs food. Always needs some monetary funds to address the situation going on right then in time. Food is always essential, but sometimes money can fix other problems with them. And you help these people locally. It's helping locally. Say a prayer. Prayer does work, no matter what a Democrat might tell you. So, all right. Now it is 52 minutes. It is 11:09 Eastern Standard Time on April 20th. If you like it, if you enjoy this program, please like and subscribe. If you don't like it, subscribe anyway and leave me a comment. I answer all. And I usually preference it with thank you for taking the time. And even though you might call me an idiot or a moron, or you might go, hey, you're spot on. Yeah, this is, you're right. That's fine. Comments. I like to hear from people. All right, everyone. Be safe. Be good. Again, happy birthday, David. Happy birthday, Laura. Everyone, be well as I fade into the